people wherever you roam.
Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic and welcome to What is Wednesday. Today we are doing a fan submission and we are doing Watchmen. So here we're going to talk about what is that, where did this come from, why do people like it, some various media incarnations of Watchmen, and some cultural impacts. So let's dive in. Published back in 1986 and 87, Watchmen is a series of comic books collected into one graphic novel. It was written by Alan Moore and drawn by Dave Gibbons. Watchmen is one of the most popular compiled graphic novels of all time, and even sits on Time magazine's list of 100 best novels. While it was published by DC Comics, it does not take place in any other DC continuity. The images seen here are either from the graphic novel Watchmen or from the movie Watchmen made in 2009, which we'll talk about towards the end of this video. Watchmen imagines an alternate past, where superheroes have been among us for a long time. They helped the United States to win the Vietnam War and become national heroes. The main storyline takes place in the 80s, still under the presidency of Richard Nixon. Immediately following the Vietnam War, heroes were celebrated, but they've since been banned from existence. For a majority of the story, we follow a vigilante named Rorschach, who operates outside the law and continues to fight crime. He's investigating the murder of a hero called the Comedian. While he was unlikable, Rorschach is confused as to why and how someone could take the Comedian out, so our story follows this mystery as it unravels. We also meet a hero named Dr. Manhattan. He was a scientist who was caught inside of a scientific experiment and basically became a being of pure energy, with complete control over all atomic beings. He could disintegrate people in an instant, teleport to anywhere he wanted, and even saw his entire existence happening all at once, instead of a linear timeline. In terms of plot, Dr. Manhattan was the tipping point in the Cold War, as the USSR was unsure that America wouldn't use this being to destroy them. At the beginning of the story, Dr. Manhattan is in a relationship with a human woman and a former hero herself, but they slowly drift apart as Manhattan becomes less and less tied to the human world. This becomes even more so when he is accused of causing cancer in people near him, which triggers an exile to Mars where he can be alone. There are other characters involved here, but the most important one in the end is a character named Ozymandias. We are going to dive into the ending of Watchmen. So if you think this sounds interesting, stop the video now and go watch it. So anyways, Ozymandias is a former hero who uses wealth and power to fight crime. It's said that he is the smartest man on the planet. It's because of this intelligence that Ozymandias does something to help the world, but in turn, kills many people. What he does is different in the novel and in the movie, so we'll tackle the novel first. In the novel, he creates an alien-like monster resembling an octopus squid-like creature and unleashes it upon New York. It eventually dies, so it doesn't cause too much destruction, but enough so that warring nations would come together instead of fighting. They now have a mutual enemy. Rorschach wants to expose this truth, which would undo the truce and in fact make all those deaths meaningless. So Dr. Manhattan kills him, realizing that this foul deed is in fact best for the world. In the film, the ending is drastically different, but I think it's also quite appropriate. Instead of a giant monster, Ozymandias makes Dr. Manhattan himself the enemy. It makes these mass deaths look like they were caused by him. This also unifies the countries against Dr. Manhattan, just for a different reason. So some graphic novel purists were pretty upset by the movie's divergence at the finale, though some also prefer this ending. The movie in general was well received for its visuals, but often criticized for its pacing and lacking some of the depth of the graphic novel. One of the most prominent cultural icons from Watchmen is the smiley face with blood on it, which is first seen at the death of the character the Comedian. This face features prominently on the cover of Watchmen as well. It also pops up several other times throughout the book. Replica pins of this smiley face can be bought at many entertainment and pop culture shops. And while it's commonplace to see comic books and superhero movies these days, it's important to remember that these books were published in a time when comics weren't fairly mainstream, and the idea of a dark and gritty superhero story was fairly uncommon. This book served almost as a parody to the lighthearted golden age of comics from the 70s. More recently, to capitalize on the movie and the popularity of the title in general, DC Comics released a prequel series of comics called Before Watchmen in 2012, which was published without the consent of either the writer or the artist. Alan Moore, the writer, even called the project completely shameless, and that they must not have any other choices left. So that is The Watchmen. We've got a graphic novel, we've got a movie, we have some prequels that came out. There's cultural icons. There's a lot that this movie and graphic novel have contributed to kind of modern mainstream pop culture. So that's what it is. One of the first dark and gritty graphic novels of all time, and one of the best for sure, The Watchmen. So let me know below if you're a fan, if you prefer the graphic novel or the movie, which ending you think is best, and let me know what you want to see in future installments of What Is. So next week, we've got a great surprise for you. We'll see you then.